Hey everyone, and welcome as we continue our study through the New Testament, looking at the 250 events in the life of Jesus. And today we are looking at Jesus urging the disciples to pray for her workers. And if you've been following us, you know that we're going through this chronologically. We're going through the four Gospels chronologically, looking at Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. This particular section is just in Matthew 9:35 through 38. But what we're looking at here is this really something important. I don't know if we really talk about this a lot, to be honest with you, but it's the need to pray for workers in the church. And so let's look at this. This is a short section, so we'll look at this and then we'll hit the notes that we have here. And so this is right after verse 34. The Pharisees were telling Jesus, or telling the people that were following Jesus, or those who had listened, that he is casting out demons because he's empowered by the prince of demons, saying that he was, the reason he can cast out demons is because he's actually empowered by Satan. And so we see this summary at the end of 9 where Matthew writes and says, Jesus traveled through all the towns and villages of that area, teaching in the synagogues and announcing the good news about the kingdom. And he healed every kind of disease and illness. Everywhere he went, he would continue to heal the diseases and the illness, the lame. And then we see this last part. It says, when he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were confused and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. He said to his disciples, the harvest is great, but the workers are few. So pray to the Lord who is in charge of the harvest. Ask him to send more workers into his fields. And so, what we see, part of the reason why Jesus was saying this was because, he was talking about the fact that, the Pharisees had really neglected their pastoral duties, right? Their shepherding duties. And they and I'll be honest with you, I think we see some parallel with this in the church today, unfortunately. And what had happened was the Pharisees were more concerned about the rules, right? And a lot of it was about the power and the money and stuff like that. And so they were more focused on that, and they were neglecting their pastoral duties. And so Jesus saw this. He says they were confused and helpless like sheep without a shepherd, because no one was shepherding them. And in their current religious context, they weren't being shepherded. They were basically being held to this standard of, you got to do all these things, and if you don't do all these things or the exact way we say you have to do them, then you're not right. And so we see that kind of mentality in the church today, right? And and so Jesus was saying, look, we've got to get away from this. We've got to get away from this. And so he's like saying, let's pray for some workers, right? And so I have a couple of things to point to this until I get to my notes is, if you are a leader in the church, make sure that you're, and it doesn't have to be an elder or pastor or whatever terminology you use to be a shepherd, right? You can shepherd people in the church, outside the church, without having the title of being that. And so that's one thing you can do. But the other is, if you are right, and if your focus is more on, like, you know the business of church, right, and not the shepherding side of church, then take a good look at that. Go back and look through what it means to lead the church, and what Jesus actually says what leadership is supposed to look like. And leadership looks a lot like servantship. And that's where the term servant leader comes from. Is it's not a, let me lord my eldership or my, my pastoralship or my certain thing over you. Let me come behind and help, guide you. That's what shepherds did. And so that's where we need to try to get with our leadership in the churches. And so, we just need to look at this from the lens of Jesus. This is one thing I try to do when I go through this, is I try to run everything through the lens of Jesus, right? What did Jesus look at? How did Jesus look at this? And I think this was one of those things that if he were here today, he would say, look, we need to do a better job in this. And so the Pharisees were continuing to attack Jesus because they just rejected him. But the crowds were languishing because of the neglect, right? And the mistreatment that they were had from the Pharisaic leaders, the Pharisees and other leaders in the Jewish religion. And so Jesus was looking at these crowds that were following him, and he referred to them as fields ripe for the harvest. And what it was is that you had all these people who were willing to follow Jesus. They saw something different in him. They realized that, hey, he's not like these other people who are telling us what to do, right? He's guiding us along. He cares for us. He is shepherding them. He was, obviously he's the true shepherd, right? He's the perfect shepherd, and he was doing that. And the thing we have to realize now is there, even today, right? There are a lot of people out there who are ready to give their life to Christ if someone would just show them how. That's what Jesus come around and did. He showed them a new way counter to what was happening in their culture and in their religion. And we need to bring that new way of what Jesus showed and back into our religion, I think, or into our Christianity. I don't like using the term religion, back into Christianity. And so Jesus commands us to pray for that. And I'll be honest, this is something I've not done well, is pray for people to come along and help and be workers. And so it is something that, I don't know, I've never really heard it talked on or really preached about much. It's not really something we've talked about a lot. And so I think it's one of those things that's just assumed we do, but maybe we need to focus on this a little bit. And so a lot of times we'll pray for something, right? God answers our prayers by using us. And so we need to make sure that we're doing that, but we need to be prepared for God to use us to show another person the way to Him. And that's the thing is, if we're going to pray for this, we need to be willing to do it ourselves. And this is a problem in the church is there's really not that many people in the church actually trying to bring people to Christ. I don't have the current statistics in front of me, but it's very small. It was like 2 to 5%, I think, of those who call themselves Christians who are actively trying to bring someone to church. And so this is, I mean, obviously, if we can pray this prayer, but if we just got to work, right? If we just prayed and actually, committed to what we were praying for, that would make a huge difference in the church. And so this is where we need to get to and not only pray for it but do it ourselves. I think one of the things, if we pray for the God to bring more workers or more people to work and bring people to Christ, that's going to weigh on our hearts, right? If we're not doing it, or especially not doing it the way we're supposed to be. And so this is just what we need to look at it in this story. It's a short one, it's not very long, right? Is just notice that there's a lot of parallels between, I think, what was going on here in the New Testament and what's going on now, right? We're seeing a huge group of people leave the church, right? Since 2000, 40 million people have left the church. So there's to say that there's a huge field ripe for harvest would be an understatement. It'd be different if the church was at an all-time high and 98% of the country was Christians, and so it'd be kind of hard to say whether the fields are ripe for harvest. There'd still be obviously opportunities, but looking at where we're at today, the church percentage-wise is one of the smallest it's ever been in the United States. And so this is an opportunity for us, right? The fields are ripe again. And so we need to make sure that we're out doing what we're supposed to be doing. And again, I always go back to this. We need to do it in a loving way. That's one of our biggest issues a lot of times is we take Jesus to people, but we don't do it in a loving way. And so we turn people away from Jesus by the way we act. And we need to be careful with that. I've talked about that in the last couple of videos. So this is my encouragement to you. If you're not actively working to bring people to Christ, start doing that. Pray for yourself in that, right? Pray for God to give you the opportunities, to give you the words to say. And so that's part of praying for this. And then pray for more workers. Pray for that. And as we do this, and I think this is something heavily that the church needs to really dive deep on and pray about every single day, is do this. And so if we do this, I think we can make a huge difference in our culture and in our world and to those around us and the loved ones around us. As always, I appreciate you for watching these, for following along. If it's something that you think would be beneficial to someone else, please share it. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please go ahead and do so. And as always, I appreciate you for watching.